The other day, we read I Want an Iguana by Karen Kaufman Orloff and David Catrow. In this book, we saw Alex, a little boy who was writing letters to his mom to convince her that he should have a baby iguana. Today, we're going to practice learning about the different parts of a letter and writing a letter ourselves. The first thing I'm going to do is open my book and go to the first letter that Alex wrote his mom. Let's see. So this is the first letter Alex wrote his mom. Now I'm going to start looking and I'm going to point out the parts of the letter to you that I see or don't see. First, I'm going to read it. Dear Mom, I know you don't think I should have Mikey Gulligan's baby iguana when he moves, but here's why I should. If I don't take it, he goes to Stinky, and Stinky's dog Lurch will eat it. You don't want that to happen, do you? Signed, your sensitive son, Alex. The first thing I noticed is that Alex is actually missing his date up here. The date is a very important part of a letter that we should always include. I also noticed that Alex has some really good parts of his letter, though, so I'm going to point those out as well. I see that Alex greeted his mom by saying, Dear Mom, and that's the very first part of his letter. I also see this whole part of the letter where he's trying to convince his mom to let him have Mikey Gulligan's baby iguana. This part is called the body of the letter. It's where he is writing to his mom and telling her what he wants and why he should have it. I also see down here a closing. Alex closes his letter by saying, Signed, your sensitive son. And lastly, he signs his name, Alex, and that is his signature, and that is the last part of a letter. Today, we're going to practice writing our own letter and labeling the different parts. So I'm going to get my notebook, and I'm going to start with the very first part. And this part Alex left out, but that's okay. We're going to make sure we add it in our letter. So today is December 2, 2020. This part is called the date. So I'm just going to put an arrow and write that. The next part is the greeting, and I am writing my letter to Santa telling him what I would like this year for Christmas. So for my greeting, I'm going to write, Dear Santa, because that's who I'm sending it to. So I'm going to label that part of my letter now too. Okay, so far we have two things in our letter. The next thing I'm going to do is write the body of my letter. In this part of my letter, I'm going to tell Santa what I want for Christmas and why. So I'm going to write, for Christmas this year, I would like a new scarf. And I'm going to tell him now why I want a new scarf. I want a new scarf because it is getting very cold outside. I also want a scarf because my old one is falling apart and doesn't keep me warm anymore. Hopefully, you are able to find a nice, warm scarf for me. period. So this part that I just wrote in the green, that part is called the body, so I'm going to label that. The body is where I wrote my letter to Santa and told him what I wanted and why. Then I'm going to put my closing. And if you remember, Alex said, signed, your sensitive son, and that was his closing. In my closing, I am going to say, love, and then I am going to put my signature, which is just my name. Okay, so I put my closing, and I'm going to label that real quick. And I put my signature. So now I have a letter to Santa with all 5 important parts. I've got my date, I've got my greeting, I've got my body, my closing, and my signature. And these are the 5 parts that make a letter